With a groundswelling of support, it's clear to see a tidal shift when it comes to protecting our most valuable resource, the water. In this week's show, we'll go on location with our partners at the News Press. In assignment Save Our Water, we're recapping a day-long summit that brought all the stakeholders together to air out interests, issues, and solutions. We'll begin our show with an overview of this fluid situation. Freshwater releases from Lake Okeechobee brought the issue to a head, but trouble's been brewing for years. Then we'll bring you on stage as experts break down the water woes in a series of TED Talk-style presentations. And in Perspectives, we'll hear from people like you and me who live near or depend on the water for sport or livelihood. I'm Amy Osher. In 30 minutes time, we hope to inform and maybe inspire you. I'm Amy Osher. Thanks for joining us. Our beaches and waterways are the lifeblood of Southwest Florida, and anything that damages them has a ripple effect through our community. Pictures of dead fish and green algae make for a bad image. But in this video essay, the News Press's Amy Bennett Williams speaks of the water woes, both man-made and natural in nature.
Water. In Southwest Florida, our relationship with it has always been as full of pleasure as it is with chronic struggle. The very reason most people choose to live here also creates one of our greatest challenges: how to sustain large-scale civilization in so very wet a place. Bounded by the Gulf, laced by rivers, and dappled with wetlands, water is ubiquitous in Florida, fed by abundant rainfall and the upwelling of myriad springs. And it's always moving. For centuries, the peninsula's water flowed north to south down the central spine of the state to Florida Bay, until we changed all that. Engineers seamed together the ancient valley's ponds, lakes, creeks, and river into one channeled waterway from Lake Okeechobee to the Gulf of Mexico. We built a dike around the fluid border of Lake Okeechobee's lower margin. We made the Caloosahatchee a canal hooked to the lake to act as a drain pipe. We fundamentally changed seasonal patterns. We made suburbs possible in what was once swampland. We dried up the Everglades for farming, and we reduced flooding around the lake. But the Caloosahatchee has always been more than a ditch. Ancient Indians built their civilization around its estuary. Other tribes did their own engineering upriver, hand-digging a canal in what's now Glades County to bypass a section of seasonal rapids. Early European settlers made war on the Indians, and in the footprints of their forts, settlements grew: Punta Rassa, Fort Myers, Fort Deneau. Before highways, the waters were our thoroughfares and our pantry, serving up abundant fish, oysters, and crabs. Well-heeled northerners like Thomas Edison and Standard Oil President Ambrose McGregor came to enjoy the warmth and water, then spurred a new type of growth, one based on rest and recreation. By the early 1900s, the region was attracting the likes of Teddy Roosevelt, Henry DuPont, and J.P. Morgan. And the draw persists to this day. Tourism remains our leading industry. Hotels and motels line our waterfronts, as do thousands of homes, more than 31,000 of them on Lee County's canals, creeks, and coastline. Thousands more play in our water, boating, fishing, kayaking, exploring. But the more of us there are, the greater the strain on our most precious resource. All those homes ooze a stream of contaminants into our waterways: herbicides, pesticides, septic runoff. The farms and ranches that surround Lake Okeechobee contribute fertilizer and other chemicals as well. But since we've walled off the lake, when it gets too deep, we send its polluted water down the Caloosahatchee. It rushes past La Belle, Fort Myers, and Cape Coral out into the Gulf of Mexico. Too much, and the estuaries aren't salty enough. Living things die. Seagrass and oyster beds suffer. Nutrients feed algal blooms that harm other wildlife. Fishermen have trouble finding fish. Crabbers can't find blue crabs. Usually, the heavy flow of polluted water down the Caloosahatchee comes only in the wettest months. But this January, 11.5 inches of rain fell across Lee and Collier counties, with heavy rains upstream as well. As the water level in Lake O rose, managers opened the floodgates, sending about 9,000 cubic feet per second, billions of gallons, down the river toward the Gulf, as much as they could, given the limitations of gravity in the pumps. It was also far more water than the watershed could handle, even at the peak of health. Governor Rick Scott declared a state of emergency. Dirty water decreases property values, depresses home sales, cuts bookings at area hotels and motels. But help is on the way, state and federal water managers promise. Several projects to store or clean the water before it flows into the lake and after it leaves the lake are in the works. The man-made C-43 reservoir near LaBelle will store vast amounts of water, so too much won't flow to the estuary too quickly when it rains. During the dry season, the reservoir will feed the estuary the fresh water it needs. At the same time, managers are working to send more water south to the Everglades rather than down the river. A series of new bridges will allow flows underneath roadways as cars stream between the two coasts. But even that natural-sounding solution carries problems. Because the Everglades is a national park, water sent there must be clean enough to meet federal standards. And the nearly extinct Cape Sable seaside sparrow lives in a small area in the now much drier Everglades. Making the glades wetter now could finish the birds off. Many groups have clamored for the state to buy more farmland south of the lake and move the water there. But many officials say it's important to concentrate on projects already on the drawing board. Changing priorities only delays solutions, they contend. One thing all stakeholders agree on: we have to keep talking to each other and keep working to save the lifeblood of Southwest Florida.
The Save Our Water Summit was held this week at the Sanibel Harbor Resort and Spa. I had the opportunity to host the 6-hour event. A sellout crowd heard from more than a dozen speakers, and we're giving you a front row seat and a peek at the action.
I was fortunate to see many of the water projects we will be discussing today from 1,000 feet in the air, from storage treatment facilities and elaborate canal systems south to the culverts and dike reinforcement work going on at Lake Okeechobee, and all the while getting an even better visual of the massiveness of the lake, where even from 1,000 feet, you can't see from one end to the other. I got a better understanding that with a water body this big, the efforts to store, treat, and finally send water south is a Herculean but crucial effort. I saw how a massive flow of water can be rerouted, slowed, and cleaned through the Kissimmee River restoration efforts. Back here on Earth, as an editorial board, we have met with all the major stakeholders, from government agencies to business and tourism officials to the scientists to the environmentalists. We know who blames who for what. We have read the science that comes from the mountains of data, and like these groups, formed our opinions and shared them with our print and digital audience. Like you, we are most interested in the science and the solutions to end this water crisis, and I know we will hear much of that today. Underneath your lunch is a placemat that has a lot of great information on it on restoration efforts. On the other side of that is a Save Our Water poster. I'd like you all to stand, and on the count of 3, we're going to raise it over our heads, and we're going to say, Save Our Water. 1, 2, 3, Save Our Water!
The news press spent months on a series of feature videos focusing on the many stakeholders, people, and groups with distinct interests in saving our water. For our first perspective, we go on the water with the boater.
Played and swam all along the river all my life, you know. Tubing, kneeboarding, boating. As a young kid, you know, those are the things we used to do. It absorbed a lot of our time, kept us off the street, kept us out of trouble. If we were to be found, it was out here floating around, throwing each other off the boats, just being boys and having a good time. It's been nice to grow up out here. A lot of the water releasing that's going on is affecting everything on the river. It's affecting the use of it, it's affecting all the vegetation. It's been rough, especially this summer. It's so hot. You know, they're posting signs everywhere, you're not to swim in the area, bacteria in the water. So, you know, everyone's real sketchy about it. We don't know what they're sending our way. You know, we see the water's green, we know we can't swim in it, but we don't know what it is. We hear one story, we hear another story, and we enjoy getting in the water and floating around and passing the time. It's a bit irritating. It really is. You take your gambles and you go do things you're not supposed to do, but you know, this is something you don't dare go against. I mean, we haven't been out in 7 months or so. I think they need to send the water a different direction. We're catching the drift of it, but further downstream it's affecting them as well. A lot of people in other communities, some use the river, but in this particular area, the river is very busy. I mean, everybody here in this community has a boat and they utilize the river. Now, you know, a little further down, people might not, or a little further out east, people might not use the river as much, but here, it's used a lot. We swing off the rope swings, we float, swim. Everyone takes turns riding the tubes behind the jet skis. You build a little fire, cook out, hamburgers, hot dogs. Again, it's just a good place for everybody to come together, you know, in the community. It's real nice. And along the river here, there's about 4 different islands that people hang out and float around. So I know further east you go, you know, the river doesn't offer that to those people that far down. But we're thankful for it. Got a lot of good memories. We'd like for them to come back.
When we come back, location, location, location. Does waterfront property take a dip when the situation gets murky?
My name is Steve Unser, and cabinetry is my specialty. I have been creating custom designed cabinetry for 20 years in Southwest Florida, and now I am celebrating the grand opening of our new Naples showroom. Steve Unser Cabinetry will help you design your kitchen, bath, or home office with stunning results, offering the best quality of cabinets with a wide variety of design options and pricing to fit any budget. If your kitchen isn't becoming to you, you should be coming to us. Now, 2 locations to serve you.
Hiring the right moving company is important. Best Moving and Storage is a family-owned and operated business serving Southwest Florida for over 22 years. From our free in-home estimate until the last piece of furniture is in your new place or stored in our climate-controlled warehouse, we treat you like family. Best Moving and Storage is fully licensed and insured, with all of our employees being certified drivers and packers. When it comes to protecting your treasured belongings, choose a company that's experienced and trustworthy. Call Best Moving and Storage today at 239-592-6565.
The Save Our Water Summit is an experience-based multimedia campaign with special newspaper material to augment the series of discussions that took place in front of a live audience. We wanted to make it a two-way conversation and see what brought people to the summit.
We live on the water down here, and we're very concerned over the quality of it. The color has changed and so forth.
And are you hoping to get some answers or just a better understanding?
I think just a better understanding today, because the problem's quite complex, and we're just trying to understand everything that's involved.
We've just been following the discussion in the newspaper, and also we've done a little investigation going around looking at the water structures and the waterway itself. So we're interested in the history of it and how it got to the present situation.
Because we hear all the money that people are talking about spending, and to put things back to the way they used to be 100 years ago.
Well, I just hope they straighten this whole water mess out. There's a lot of conflict, and I think the sugar industry is dominating what's going on, not looking at the best interests of people down the road.
I'm tired of the people on both sides saying, "Oh, where does it come from?" You know, no, it's the farms. No, it's the people. I don't care where it comes from. It just needs to be fixed.
Now back to more of the perspective videos. It's not an exaggeration to say bad water is bad for business. Tourism, of course, is vulnerable, but so is real estate. In our next video, we look at the impact to waterfront property.
So I'm an 8th generation Floridian. I'm probably a unique person in this whole story there, where I've lived at the headwaters. I was just in the Everglades yesterday. I live in Southwest Florida, where the water from Orlando flows through Fort Myers from time to time. I fish Okeechobee. I know these waters fairly well from across the entire state. I specialize in waterfront property sales here in Lee County, Florida. Been doing that for about 14 years now. About 270 different buyers and sellers with close to $300 million worth of waterfront sales. So I've just got a true passion in my blood for the waterfront on the west coast of Florida. I've been living on the water for 16 years here, and I can tell you from the very first year that I lived here, the water was pristine, beautiful, perfect, catching tarpon in the backyard, and then you come out and the water's dark and you wonder, where did the fish go? It takes a couple of months. The water recedes in Lake Okeechobee, the bays recover, and we go back to what we enjoy, which is the water without the dark water coming on us. How does this waterfront impact waterfront sales? Not quite what you would think, where we would see the number of sales drop or the prices drop, anything like that. This has been going on for many, many, many years. So the impact of the water from Lake Okeechobee has already factored into our pricing and our number of sales. Those people who want pristine water, they probably aren't shopping here necessarily. The people who shop here are the people who live here, want to be here, your successful business people, your local physicians, people who have family members already in the area and want to be near them. Those are the people where the water quality isn't something that would prevent them from living here. The three most important words in real estate are location, location, location. If you look at a satellite view of the state of Florida, you're going to see pretty quickly that we've got a special location here in Southwest Florida. I'd like to have the Army Corps of Engineers and the powers that be explain to us in detail why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. What's the purpose of the water in Lake Okeechobee? Why do they want to keep it between 12 and 15 feet? That tells me when we get to 15 feet, they start releasing the water. Why not keep it at a lower level? Make a deeper, wider, bigger channel, bypass as much of that farmland as we can, and then let that water go south into that river of grass like it's supposed to be. From a real estate standpoint, I see nothing but upside, nothing but opportunity. The day when we finally have the powers that be sending that water south through the river of grass like God intended it to do, we're going to see our water in a pristine condition. We're going to see demand spike. We're going to see valuations increase significantly. We're going to see non-waterfront properties increase to follow that waterfront property value increase. So right now, I guess in summary, what I would say is the Lake Okeechobee water releases have kept a lid on the waterfront values in Lee County.
Another stakeholder is the farmer. Agricultural interests are closely entwined when it comes to water. Here's a closer look.
I grow citrus for the processed market, juice, sell to Florida natural growers, and been in the business pretty much all my life. The river is certainly my lifeblood as far as supplying water when I need it during the dry season. Basically, I depend on that to irrigate my citrus trees and to help grow my crop of fruit. We do not discharge directly into the river, but we maintain that first acre-inch of rain to filter the water. We use the best practices as far as the amount of water required at a specific time of the year. We fertilize only what is required to produce a crop of fruit. And through these scientific studies, we know how much is needed to apply, and that's what we strive to do. The farmer is steward of the land and hopefully give it back better to the next generation. And basically, we capture water that would go off into runoff, but yet it's filtered through the groundwater, through the fields. There's no concrete here, so it goes directly in the ground to be used by other people. We just had record rainfall this past year in the driest time of the year, and certainly we were vastly affected by this rainfall. Farmers had their fields flooded. We lost citrus due to too much rain, so we all suffer when Mother Nature throws us a curveball. We're all in this water situation together, either whether it's too much or too little. We could easily be going through a drought in the next 2 years, and then basically we need more water. Gulf Citrus has been in existence for over 30 years, and we've been working with inland and coastal communities in order to manage this resource, and farmers are certainly eternal optimists. We certainly recognize the challenges that we all face in our environment. We want to do our best to maintain this resource and protect it for future generations. As more people come into the state of Florida, we've got to do a better job and be more diligent because it's a limited resource. And if we don't protect them, there's not going to be enough for everyone to go around. Certainly no quick fix or just one solution fixes the whole river. You know, certainly we've gone from less storage in the dike in Lake Okeechobee because of the integrity of the dike to getting record rainfall. It's amazing even back in the early 1900s when we drained all the land for development. Now we did that and that was wrong. It's a constantly moving target, and it's going to take a multitude of solutions to solve the problem, and certainly a lot of thinking from very forward-thinking individuals to come up with a solution to all the problems.
Still to come, work and play. Our water is both for fishermen and sportsmen who are banking on a healthy habitat. That's ahead and behind the headlines. Boat captains are among the leaders that brought the Save Our Water movement from grassroots to mainstream. Here's a look at the situation from their perspective.
This body of water being a San Carlos Bay, Pine Island Sound, Matlacha Pass, and really all the estuaries in South Florida, to me, are not only where I make my living, it's my way of life out here. Everything from paying my bills to recreating with friends and loved ones happens on these waters. I've been fishing these waters in this area my entire life. Just the change that I've seen in the quality of the estuary and the loss of habitat, you know, we're wondering, one, what is the future of our fishery? And two, what is the future of our businesses? To see any sort of change happen that quickly is a real sign to me as an outdoorsman that something's wrong and something needs to be done. Majority of my clients will come here and fish for a number of days. They come here with their family, and the wife and kids may want to hang out on the beach and relax and play in the water while the husband comes and spends a few days fishing with me. And when our water's nasty and our shellfish are dying, and mothers and families don't feel like it's safe to put their children in the water and let them swim in the water, it's simple, they leave. Just 30 years ago, this was huge expanses of turtle grass, and the water was very, very clean. You see, as that grass dies off, the sediment is then able to flow farther downstream without being cleaned. Ultimately, we're losing habitat, and it's a snowball effect. The more you lose, the faster you lose it. This estuary here is part of a broad estuary that is Florida. When we start to see portions of it degrade and begin to collapse, we need to look at the big picture to figure out how to fix that. And ultimately, this estuary and the estuary in St. Lucie on the East Coast are suffering from too much fresh water in high volume, let alone the nutrient and sediment that's in that fresh water. But just the volume of fresh water alone being introduced into a saltwater estuary is damaging. On the other end of it, the Everglades in Florida Bay is being starved of fresh water that historically would flow all the way from the Kissimmee River Basin down through what is the Lake Okeechobee and into the Everglades. There may be all these little projects that could help in some way, but the one thing that can be done that's going to have an impact not only on the Caloosahatchee and Southwest Florida estuaries where I live and work, but also for the St. Lucie and also, more importantly, even for the Everglades, is to restore some of that natural historic flow south from Lake Okeechobee to provide sheet flow to the Everglades where, you know, the water is desperately needed. By being able to send some of that water down there, it's going to be less water that needs to be sent out of the east and west coast. Our economy of South Florida revolves around clean, healthy ecosystems. It's not a matter of coast versus inland or fishermen versus agricultural people. There's a happy medium. By sending some water south, it's going to stimulate our state's economy, and it's going to ensure the future of our economy for our state and of our way of life.
That does it for this edition of Behind the Headlines. We hope you were motivated and educated with our shared look at the state of Southwest Florida's waterways. You can always reach out to me by liking my Facebook page. It's Amy Osher Reporter. And all of our shows, including this one, are available online. Just log on to naplesnews.com. On the left-hand side, under Quick Links, select Behind the Headlines. I'm Amy Osher. See you back here next week.